Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of In Lay Terms. I'm your host, Payman Askari. We have back with us our very special guest, Mr. Kris Eriksen. Kris, welcome back.
Thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be on.
We were talking backstage. I guess the topic of conversation is the recent election. You and I haven't really talked since then.
Right.
You had a lot to say backstage, so why don't I just throw it on your lap and you run with it?
I appreciate that. Yeah, we're still kind of watching it play out, right? Like it's hard. I've seen enough to be able to, make a general assessment in regards to this kind of needed to happen, and it needed to happen the way it's happening. I think a lot of us can, like I was mentioning behind, like there's a lot of disenfranchised independents, conservatives, people who feel they haven't had a voice. And to see the way the election went down, we can get into the details as far as, okay, what caused the 25-point dip, what's going now with these ridings, these recounts. I'll give a shout out to Blender News. They had a good video out yesterday saying that, for this one riding to have flipped, it was the equivalent to winning 7 lotteries in a row. It just doesn't happen, right? And then so when it comes back to the biggest problem for me has been for the last 3 years is the silence on some of the major issues. So we had we can go through them all, but I think right now, as far as after the election, there's a lot of conservative CPC members, I think, that are questioning, is the party representing their best interest? Is the party operating from a position of opposition? And for me, man, it's always been the silence. You can say whatever you want, but I care about everybody, and I see so much trauma, so much damage, and nothing's being said. And, on one side, you hear the arguments, the CPC can't say anything because they'll get torn apart by the media. Donald Trump has shown how you handle the media. And at the same time, like I said before, it's like, if you're letting the external define your narrative as far as what you can and can't say, then what do you stand for? Like, I don't know what you stand for. I can remember lots of slogans. I can remember a lot of this, 3 years of it, man, that was very difficult as we see the trauma from, every year that it goes by from COVID, the COVID event, every year that goes by, the trauma, the post-traumatic stress that a lot of people are probably suffering through. I think it's safe to say that there are a lot of people that are still very confused, lost, anxious, don't know exactly what happened to their country. And to not have an official opposition that can speak with conviction. I'm not talking firebranding. I'm not saying put the MAGA hat on and rage, but you need to be an adult about what the country's facing and acknowledge, validate that people are suffering, validate that the corruption is off the charts. 10 years, man, and we haven't had one person held accountable. So you can say, well, that's just, the Trudeau government had the monopoly with saying, it's like, yeah, but there's no mechanisms. When I was, this is interesting, before I was in, before I retired, right? So up until 2019, politicians knew how to pick up the phone. They would call the RCMP. They would call the police when they would have certain things that were definitely not above board. And so for me to sit back and watch all this stuff playing out, like, I'm kind of jumping around a bit, but yesterday was a good example of it when the WHO treaties passed. Not a word, right? And what I've noticed with the conservatives is they give Leslyn Lewis the ability to speak to issues, but the leader never touches it. And I come from politics, man. The opposition leader's got the biggest podium, second biggest podium in the country, and to say nothing and to play this game like I'm a celebrity and going, oh, I'm going to go after the election, I'm going to go fist bump to create photo ops at UFC events and stuff. I got to the point where I'm like, good, I'm not happy with the state our country is in. I know we're heading for darker times, but I think that it is imperative. And when people say, oh, you're always criticizing the CPC. Okay, yeah, I believe I have merit to my concerns. But what I don't want to have happen is a lot of these CPC members to wake up one day, realize they're wrong, and not have a backup plan. Because, it's like, I'll just finish on this point with this here, is that there's a guy, Gerald Celente, said, when people have nothing left to lose, they lose it. And what bothers me about the CPC is the silence and being told how to think. And they all go along with it. The shills getting paid the dollars to push this as this is actually what an opposition is supposed to be doing. You can't play footsies with whatever these are, communists, whatever they are, globalists, whatever you call them. You can't play footsies with them. You got to stand with conviction. If people don't like it, then again, you should have somebody in there that knows what their values are, knows what their principles are, be able to speak truth to power. Because all I've seen, man, if you ask me what exactly happened with Poilievre's campaign, is a 3-year distraction. All of these other things that were pushed through, that moved forward for what in the end? And to see all the stuff that's going on with the election, yeah, I believe it was rigged. I think there's enough evidence to suggest that it was rigged when you see what's going on with these ridings that could end up with the Liberals having a majority, but nothing from the opposition. And so, honestly, man, I think it's good. I think that there's not everyone's going to wake up. I guarantee it. There's not. Like, the left is there in their world, but the other part of the uniparty, where you've got this shield, all these people that are protecting the conservatives, don't realize that they don't care about your kids. They don't care about your grandkids. The people aren't here. The people who are here now. You think for a second they were affected negatively by the COVID event? No. Do you think they're going to be affected? Do you think any of these guys are going to be affected negatively if Bill C-63 goes through, Bill C-11 goes through? Oh, we signed up for the WHO treaty. We're into the Paris Agreement. It's like, you want to shake people, but I'm glad that, you can't shake people in society. That's why I'm on here coming out. It's like, yeah, we got dark times ahead. We need to wake people up, because I don't want you, if you're a CPC member, you're watching this, I don't want you to wake up one day and not have a backup plan and have to look at your wife in your eyes and say, oops, I was wrong. You got to start asking those serious questions. And the way the CPC behaved leading up to the election, the way they behaved after the election, to me, I'm hopeful, that eternal optimist in me, is that's going to be enough, for at least some, because we're not going to get all, but I don't want to see anybody get left behind in this, nor do I want to see that cognitive dissonance smack them hard, where now they're in survival mode, where we kind of have been for 5 years, as far as what's coming next, having to move and shake. And it was slow for me. It took me a little while. Like, I had this is kind of odd, why aren't you saying anything, and to get attacked constantly. But once you get to that point where you see it, there's a liberation that happens there, where you're kind of like, okay, I understand the landscape now. I can make plans. But I'm still not going to keep my mouth shut. I'm not going to hide, or you want to come after me, go, say whatever you want. I'm a big boy. But at the end of the day, we got to be real with people, man. And right now, I don't see that, like, the betrayal from the CPC is screaming across the country. And when you look at independence from provinces, that might be what needs to happen, because we don't have I have no federal representation right now. Not one single person in Parliament is talking about the issues that we need to talk. And I'm talking about trauma, sovereignty, all of these issues that are super important for a nation, for the health of a nation. And they don't care. They just tell us to eat an apple and everything will be fine, right? Can't do it. I'll put it back to you. Sorry for the ramble.
No, that's why you're here. The Conservative Party is dead to me. Like, it is literally dead. I don't think I don't have hopes for it. But do you, like, ever since they prorogued Parliament, we are on a completely different path now. It never occurred to me how important it was to actually be able to see what your leaders are doing. We're basically operating like a dictatorship. And have they repealed is Parliament back? I don't even know.
I think it's on the 26th. They come back for a couple of weeks, and then they go on.
You mentioned the WHO pandemic, WHO treaties. The reason people don't know about it is because we don't have a government. People are saying we don't have a budget. We don't have a government. Like, who do you hold accountable? Do you understand what I'm trying to get at?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're all hiding and doing their thing right now. He says it's like, we don't have a government, but you sure as hell can get out there on the grab your podium. Like I was saying backstage, the second biggest podium in the country is the opposition leader. And again, like, CBC can ignore you, or they can run it and spin it. But you got to have a game plan where you're like, this is what's going on. We are handing over our sovereignty. I do not believe for a second the Conservatives would behave any differently if there was another COVID event. I had no hope. 2 years we stayed silent, man. It was that convoy when those horns started. It was like, all right, we finally have some opposition, right? And in a good way, right? The dancing and the partying, that was great. But again, it's a matter of, you get to the point where it's like, okay, well, they're waiting on the polls. And I always found it weird that Polya popped up on February 5th with this grand, I'm running to be the Prime Minister of Canada. The timing to me was very suspect. It had kind of like a kettling component to it, as far as they get control of the narrative. This is getting out of control. And then immediately he threw Christine Anderson under the bus. And where were we? Right. And all of the gerrymandering of the convoy inquiry we had. The guy was installed. He was he's a close friend of you got them dancing at a wedding together and stuff like that. And nothing ever gets said.
Rouleau?
Yeah. The Rouleau Commission, right? And so it's like, you're looking at it and you're like, okay, well, how are people still supporting this? Like, how is it so hard for people to see? And like you said, We've been out since December. They've allocated $73 billion. And I've seen some things. I got to be careful here with what I say in regards to the Governor General's ability to actually do that legally. But if there's some line in there that if it's deemed in the public good, that they're able to do that. But I'm not sure if she made an argument. I don't know the details, but I do know that Parliament's not sitting and they still allocated $73 billion. How does that even happen? Right. And so we're in that really precarious position where we also have the opposite. Man, if I was a politician, I know if you were elected, you would be in Ottawa with this pro-rogue government sitting down and in an empty room, just highlighting what are we doing here, guys? Our country's, we've hit an iceberg. I'm going to be the one to point it out. You guys are the captains, and you just don't want to tell the crew or the passengers that we've hit an iceberg. But you'd be sitting there highlighting it. I would be sitting there highlighting it. Get to work. Like, what are you doing? $250,000 plus a year, depending on your position. All your meals are paid for, all your flights are paid for. Well, people are suffering. Have you seen the tent cities? My tent city in my town's getting bigger. Go up to Kelowna, it's the same thing. People are struggling. They're suffering. And there's such a detachment from, that it's two-tier system, man. You got the elites that don't care. They pretend, they feign that they care. But the people on the ground that have common sense, that have been looking at this going, hey, wait a second, something's wrong and terribly wrong. Like our parliament is sick. I still say we should have a crime scene because we still don't know who the foreign interference, who are the traitors that just got reelected, right? Like, how can we be living in this kind of society where everything is just like, that doesn't make sense. But I think what it does, Payman, is it's conditioning us that this is normal. Oh, there's no laws. What can we do about it? We're powerless, right? Just hide under our beds or, bury your life in a bottle of liquor or something like that. But for me, it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I want to call it out. I don't, at the end of the day, there's a level of selflessness that we do not see. The politicians aren't willing to take risks. Is it even a risk to point out that, hey, do we really want to be giving over our sovereignty to a globalist entity in regards to a pandemic? Some would argue, I'm sure, people who are watching, it's like, well, what do you think? Who do you think was in control during 2020, right? Okay, I'll give you that, right? But now it's been codified, and we have this situation where, as a Canadian, it's a hard place to be because I do love my country. I do love the people that live here, even the ones that hate me. I still, I would defend you to speak your mind whenever you want to speak it, right? As long as you're not threatening or wanting me to put me in a camp, I'll take issue with that. But at the same time, we are so lost as a country, but I see it as an opportunity because people need to wake up. If you're a CPC member, something is wrong with your party. You cannot look at yourself in the mirror and say otherwise. The silence is killing us. And that's the whole point of a controlled opposition, is to not bring shit up. Sorry, to not bring things up that the country needs to know. Your job is to inform the people about what the government's doing, and you're failing across the board. So to support that, because I think it's like, okay, I can understand the fear. I can understand the cognitive dissonance that what if this is the reality, but you got to fight through that because we need you. We need you on the battlefield. We need you to be able to speak up to people, to inform people. I don't like the idea of my neighbors CBC. So I know the next mass formation, the next elbows up movement. Okay. But what happens if it takes an even darker turn, guys? You don't get that time back. And I view Poilievre as stealing 3 years of my life. 3 years where he could have been fighting against this stuff and mobilizing people in a very productive way, not pitchforks and torches, but mobilize, get people together and on the same page with what are your core values? What are we as a country? But no, you're letting the leftists just dominate, and then you go and hide. And it's like, I don't understand, man. We're in a precarious position. Well, I do understand, but you can't lose hope. You got to keep going and just keep waking people up, as many as you can.
I just want to comment on what you said about, man, there's so many comments. Pierre Poilievre, I never thought he was a good, I see now that he's not a good leader. I think he was just at the right place at the right time. Like Aaron O'Toole was kicked out, and he did that thing where he stood up and he asked the prime minister how much, and he became like a mini celebrity. So he's like, this is easy, I'll just jump in and because everyone hated Trudeau, they gave him a free pass. And then when Trudeau was gone and he actually started getting tested, I think people realized he's not that strong and he couldn't stand up to the Conservative Party board. And the board I think the board also sabotaged him a bit. It said you have to drift to the left. You can't say this. You can't, control your candidates. Don't let them on debates.
Exactly. The CPCHQ owns all four losses now. You can say that, again, I don't really put Harper in the same position because again, country usually every two election cycles they want to change. But when it comes to Scheer, O'Toole, and Polyev, same thing. And the problem there is that you have he's an opportunist, right? Because again, I don't think he was ready for it. Because again, he lost the glasses, he bulked up a little bit, like all right, get ready for a movie role. But at the same time, you cannot excuse, like, on two fronts, either incompetent or complicit, right? I used to be campaign manager. I understand the game. Nobody in the room said, hey, you can't just use slogans and go after Trudeau because the Liberals steal your ideas, right? It's okay. So they drop the carbon tax and Trudeau is gone. What do you have? What do you have for people to support you? Where is the passion? What is going to get the people out? Not to take away from, he was filling rooms. There was a fairly big support mechanism behind him, but I don't think people knew what they were supporting. It's like, it's very easy to say, I hate Trudeau. Okay, I hate the Liberals. Justifiable, right? I can see that. I don't hate them. I got issues with them, but I don't let hate's not good for your soul. But at the same time, what does he stand for? I don't know. What does the CPC stand for? Except for opposing, being on the other side is like the lesser two evils. Guys, it's still evil. And when we look at the voting records, we see all this stuff. It's like a stage play, and they're just as good as gaslighting their members as the Liberals are gaslighting. And they couldn't do it without the protection of the shills. I said this on the last time when I was on. The shills make me angry. The ones that are carrying water and that are guiding, telling people how to think when it comes to the Conservatives, they're really the CBC. The shills are the CBC. Those the reporters that don't ask them the tough questions, the reporters that provide them protection, softball interviews, all this stuff. When you really got to get into the weeds with these people and say, who are you as a man? Because we are heading into some dark waters, and I need to know I can be in the trench with you, right? I don't mean like physically, like we're going to war, but in a way it is like mentally and emotionally. It's like you see what's going on, yet you choose not to say anything. And so you're abandoning people, you're betraying them. There's one side of it that you can say, okay, that's political strategy. But who in that room said, axe the tax, common sense, Trudeau bad? That's your platform. And then they say, oh, but if you put the stuff out too early, they'll steal our ideas. So if the Liberals can steal your ideas, you might not be conservative. I'm just saying, it makes no sense to me how we don't have that ability for clear discussion. And so when it comes to gatekeeping and narrative control, that's what frustrates me the most, is we can't have, and everyone always dismisses as, oh, PPC this, PPC that, as a derogatory attack on you guys, right? And I'm like, how does that hold water when it comes to the ideas? How do you not compare policies? It's not about that, man. It's like they control the gate. If CBC doesn't talk about it and the opposition leader doesn't talk about it, is it real? To most people, no, because they don't have any idea about the WHO treaty. They don't have any idea about all the stuff that's going on in the elections, unless you're on X. They are so blocked out and in a bubble. It's sad, man. It breaks my heart because a lot of people in the Conservative Party are good people. So it's not like I'm like, oh, I'm just trying to cause problems for them. No, I'm literally trying to wake you up, splash some water on your face, make sure you got some water and some beans stored if things go south. And yes, if it does go bad, I will give you some rice and bannock on the beach. Sorry about that. Like I'm a bit energized today because I see so many things coming, and it makes me excited because the more stuff that comes out that they stay silent about, man, the better. Because I need people to wake up. We need people to wake up and actually start facing reality of what the next 5, 10, 15 years are going to look like. And then look at your kids in the eyes and just ask yourself, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm supporting people that really do not care? And on top of that, might be involved in it, right? I think they are.
I'm going to go on a limb here and assume that you're not part of the elbows up crowd.
No, I took martial arts. You don't hold your elbows up, man. That's just asking for a rib kick. But no, I am not a part of it. I'm fascinated by it. It's actually horrifying in some degree. I feel bad for the people because they think that, I do. But again, I don't want to look down on people at the same time. It's like I go to 40,000 feet and I look at that and I'm just like, well, no different than the masks, no different than the get your vax. It's like they've conditioned this population over decades, it seems. So
let me pick up on that.
Sure.
Everyone says that this election was unique, and it seems like it was unique. But if you look at it, 2019 was governed by the fear of climate change. 2021 was the fear of COVID, and 2025 was the fear of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
The only thing I see that's different is there was an internal logic to COVID. You know, it's this deadly pandemic. There was really no internal logic I found to Donald Trump, like attacking our sovereignty. It was very flimsy, yet like the way that they. That's why I always say that 2025 was more extreme than COVID. Like at least with the pandemic, again, there's an internal logic. There's a deadly virus. If as long as you believe that, it makes
Right.
sense. But
Yeah.
how do you believe that Donald Trump is threatening your sovereignty? It was just too much of a stretch.
Yeah. There was more of a dissociative component to it with that, right? Because I can understand and rationalize some of the behaviors that occurred. If you believe what was going on, I can understand that. I can get to
If
that.
if you believe, I'm not saying I believe it, but
If I call it an event, so I don't know exactly what went on there, but I got a lot of questions that I don't feel comfortable asking at this point in time. But at the same time, well, of course I do. But with the thing that just happened here, it was such a work. Like nobody knew who Carney was, central banker, all these globalist ties. He's like, you could write a book on how to install a candidate. And then the fear, like, and part of me is like, I don't want to say this. I mean, again, if you're a Trump supporter, that's great. Like, okay, you do you. And I think a lot of the things he says, he's highly entertaining. He does things I agree with, but on the same time, I can't exclude the possibility that him and Carney are laughing about that on the phone because it got Carney the win, right? Trump also attacked Polyev as well too. That he wasn't very nice to me. Like he was very, but that doesn't really get into the media. It was all about that. But it did highlight the uniparty approach, whether it's Ukraine, whether it's the elbows up, all this kind of stuff. When the chips are down, the uniparty shines, man. And it just, he walked right into a wall there. And I don't think he's stupid. I don't think the CPC are stupid. And so I think the way that was managed I agree with you. The way that was managed was almost more frightening because there was no justification to it. Everyone just elbows up. And, like I said, I still wear my Captain America shirt. I do have some American blood, but I've also got Scottish, Irish, and whatnot. But I'm like, I wear my Captain America T-shirt out every now and again just to troll people. It's like, and it's like, I have a lot of American friends. It's like, you realize how dumb you look. Like, seriously, you have no independence. Why is that something? And it's not for all, because I think, again, it's like people want to be a part of something. It's that tribalist nature of people. They want to feel like they're in, right? They sure as heck do not want to experience what happened to us in 2020, where if you don't go along, you're now cast outside the city walls. You can't move. You're put into this don't go, and you're excluded from family events and Christmas, Thanksgiving. The way they were so vicious about you better comply or you will be cast aside. I don't know if there's a carryover from that, but at the same time, it was creepy to see all these people that were like viewing the Canadian flag as like a terrorist symbol during the convoy are now okay. That gives me cognitive dissonance as what the heck is going on here, man? Doesn't compute, but we ride at dawn every morning.
Yeah, I have a friend. He says, you change the SIM card, you get the OS update. Ukraine flags come down, Canada flag goes up.
I've said the same thing to a few people behind the scenes. Yeah, they got the update. But for me, it's like, and for you and for others, right? It's not compatible. The flash drive won't fit. But we have to sit there and watch these new updates and keep a side eye as far as what is this? That's the sad part about it is, okay, it's like they're activated, and everyone's on board, because you could probably like reverse engineer where the first article came out on the elbows up. Like, it's very manufactured as far as how do they spread the message across their megaphones, whether it's print media, whether it's on the TV. It's very orchestrated. And
I have a theory on that. If you
away.
watch the evolution of Mark Carney from the day that they brought him in, so 24 or 48 hours after he landed, he put out a social media post, and whoever was the speechwriter for that was phenomenal. Like the amount of money they spent on this guy, I think in the first month was more than they spent on Trudeau the entire time. And
Okay.
I think I'm guessing it's like Perkins Coie, Mark Elias. They probably just went to the Democrat Party and they said, "Give us the best of what you have. We want to install this guy." So they did that, and they ran the guys. This is my theory. They ran his campaign. They ran it expertly, and then as soon as he got in, they're like, "All right, our job's done. You're on your own, buddy." So he goes to DC, and he looks like a complete loser. And that
Yeah.
was like the first time people actually saw him. Before that, Parliament was prorogued. You barely really saw him anywhere giving interviews. He messed up a couple times, but they buried that.
Yeah.
And then when he gets there, you got this bobble-headed Martian-looking guy sitting there like a complete cock. 30-minute interview. I think he only talked for like 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that was like I think you're right there, because I mean they pulled out all stops. Like I said, you could write a book on how to create a candidate and install them or elect them, whatever you want to. I'll play the game for today, but you look at that, and it's like you can see the thing with Carney. Like when you look at Trudeau, I always kind of saw petulant child, narcissistic, entitled. Like you had this, still whether he's a sociopath or I'm not qualified to say sociopath or psychopath, right? But at the same time, he had traits. You look at Carney and you look him in the eyes and it's like, is there anything there? Right? Like there's a darkness to this guy that really gets my intuition bumping. Like there's something wrong. And I've met people in the world, right? There's some bankers and there are some CEOs of companies that are just not good out in the open. Put them in a boardroom and they will destroy it. They know they're in their element. They can command everything, right? But then you put them out in front of the public and they look like a wet noodle, because they're not able to dominate. Then you put him next to Trump, who's just got this presence. It's like, it doesn't matter how friendly you are with him. I would still be nervous sitting next to him there, because I don't know when he's going to throw me a curveball. You're putting yourself at his mercy in that sense. But you still got to show up. You got to be confident. You got to be able to be a diplomat. In that sense, you can't look weak. You have to be able to be confident. But at the same time, with him, it's that line, because if he feels like you're posturing, he's going to smack you, right? With Carney, he just looked so defeated. He looked like he didn't want to be there. He didn't look like he had the skill set to be in that room. And you see when he's asked questions too, he's got this attitude about him. Is like, do you know who you're talking to? You know the people behind the scenes that are like, there's people that if you cross them, you question them in front of other people.
You're absolutely right, though. He's acting like a governor of a bank, right? You're in a boardroom. He commands the boardroom. But when you're dealing with the public, you get knocked down a peg or two, because now you're dependent on them. But I was like, there was other things that made me realize they threw him under a bus. Remember, he said he's going to bring the king over here to give the throne speech. And then England, all of a sudden, they go ahead and sign a deal with Trump on tariffs. And so did the EU. So now the king has screwed him over indirectly. And his whole thing about drifting towards the EU kind of blew up in his face. So I feel like they've abandoned him. They, as the globalists.
And that's the interesting part too, because again, I might come across as a black pillar, but I don't know the answers, right? Like I can look at patterns. I can put things together as far as what pathways we may be heading. But there are some people on the other side that is like, he's not the best guy to bring in as a closer, right? If you're looking at Agenda 2030, right? Like I always kind of viewed he would come in 2029. Now I would reframe that. Now that I've seen him out in public, he's not a car salesman, right? He's not a eat an apple and you'll be well kind of guy, right? He's very dry. He's got this air about him that rubs people the wrong way. And then you start looking into him. He's like, how did this guy end up being the leader of this country? With his track record, he doesn't have a lot of successes. Personal successes, yes, he does. But when he's given the keys to the car, he does not do a good job. And a lot of the decisions that he made when he was under Harper ended up hurting us in the long run as well. And he goes over to the Bank of England, same thing. Okay, so is he an economic hitman? I'm not sure. Is he here? Is he in Canada now to sell off our assets? Is he the negotiator behind the scenes? Possible. And then there's that other theory that I love. Like X is great because I just never know what people who follow me, I don't miss followers, but the community will start informing me on things. And I'm like, oh no, the white hats are in control. You need a guy like that to expose the game, because he's so terrible at it, and he's going to be right. It's going to be difficult, but at the same time, his actions are going to wake a lot of people up. Can I discount that? No, because in that caveat is still, we are going to be facing some difficult times over the next few years. So for me, it's like, yeah, the more you let Carney talk, put him out in public, right? At the same time, I wish that we just had more of a unified front, me and you and everybody else in the country being like, hey, we're not idiots, right? Like, we are an adult. You're an adult. I'm an adult. We have critical thinking skills. We have common sense. I don't want to rule over other people. Live and let live mentality. But when you see the damage that's being done and it's not being opposed, what do? Right? I can't eat cheesecake all day. I put on like 15 pounds in the last 6 months. So I got to work that off, right? And the weather comes out, it gets nice. And so, like I was saying to you before the election, right, is that ability to organize is still there, right? I think that we're so divided, and that's what it is. We're in the season, we're in anxious season, where every single day they put more and more out. And this is by design, guys. So for whoever's watching, you got to put your shields up. You got to reconnect with nature every single day. Go find a patch of grass, take your sandals off and walk, balance yourself, ground yourself. Because every year, think about it, for the last 5 years, springtime, leading into fire season and stuff, they hit us with everything they possibly can to destabilize us, right? And then it'll happen again in the fall before everyone goes into their homes when the weather changes. It's this cycle. There's a rhythm to it. They want to keep us anxious. They want to keep us looking at different red dresses like the Matrix, keep us distracted. So that way, anytime we do come together under something, they can target it. Well, we can't have that. They're making sense over there, and people are actually coming together. And is that a smile I see? Well, we can't have that. So they want to just, again, they shatter us with some emotionally charged thing that creates a divide amongst the communities. And because they keep doing that, it shows us the power we have. They fear us coming together. They fear us, the majority of us figuring it out. And I still don't think we're a minority. I've been talking, I actually talked to some liberals, and it's like they know something's wrong. And these are classical liberals, right? But they still would have voted for Trudeau every time, right? But now they're looking at this going, something's off, right? And even some conservatives, I got a couple buddies in Vancouver that are like, you can't believe this, man. It's like, these are people that are like total conservatives. Their family has voted blue their whole life. But Poilievre's silence is really making people wonder what's going on. Because we need a fighter. We need somebody to step up and start swinging hard, but do it with a smile, right? Most people think, oh, you need a firebrand. You need someone to come out and start raging against the machine. It's like, no, you can be very effective in communicating to the public. You treat them like adults, and you do, to a degree, mock what is going on with some level of severity of, this is a problem. Because again, we can question our judiciary, we can question our law enforcement, we can question a lot of the systems that are supposed to be there to protect the public from this kind of thing happening are failing, or at least their ability to maintain the narrative, maintain that illusion that we're a democracy and that the charter matters, right? It does. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I carried it for 20 years, but one word, reasonable, and now we don't have any rights. So, man, it's good though. Like I said, I'm not one of those burn it down, we got to start again. But I am definitely a fan of the more people that wake up to the games that have been playing on with our lives for a very long time. If we can get to that point where we just say, no, we're not going to do it anymore, mobilize in a healthy way. I'm anti-violent. Violence isn't going to solve anything. I want to make that clear. If you're going to clip anything out of this interview and try and make fun of me, I am not a violent person, right? But I've got conviction, and I'll speak what I believe is truth. Don't always get it right. But again, it's like, you can't go all in on everything. But at the same time, we know something has to change. And it kind of comes back to the title. It's like, how do you win the next election? Is keep doing what you're doing. But there's got to be changes in the systems in regards to making sure that we don't have what's happening in all these ridings now, with the votes flipping and votes appearing out of nowhere, right? It's very precarious, Payman. So I'm not exactly sure how to win the next election. We got to first learn to win up here, as far as it's bad, but we got to keep riding.
We'll get to there. And I got a couple of questions on that.
Yeah.
But first, is federal politics dead? Like I've had maybe a dozen people, totally unrelated, different personalities, all of them tell me, the only way that we can reclaim our freedom is through the provinces. And that's not even to say that the provinces are better. They're just saying, like, we cannot dismantle the federal government through federal politics. If that's the case, and is there any chance for the Conservative Party to ever win? Like, it seems like everybody on the right or the freedom side is abandoning federal politics.
It seems that way. And I think because we're in BC, so we kind of saw what happened in the last election here, which again highlighted, I had a much more of a microscope on some of the behaviors that went on in the federal election. So you're right. the systems, but they're a lot easier to, I think, manage, right? Like you would see again, like I'd say, the idea that you have to make elections too big to rig is true. You know what I mean? Like it just seemed to me that it's too convenient that we had it became really close at the end, and now we have all of this, for lack of a better term, shenanigans. I was going to swear, but I didn't. But now we're in a situation where what is the federal political landscape offer someone like me? Nothing. You weren't there for me when my rights needed defending. You weren't there for people, the kids, when they needed to be protected from all this crap that went on for 5 years. And you're still silent. And when it really counts, when it comes to sovereignty, you're still silent. So I think you can't avoid the globalists entirely when it comes to, and we can even get into the provinces as far as some of the things. There's not one politician in this country that I'm like, yeah, I'm all in. But there's not one person in this country that I'm all in on. So it's like, I need you to trust, but I need to be able to verify that you actually stand for what you believe in, because I'm tired of being lied to. It's like that. You go, how many times can you let people piss on your leg, look you in the eyes and tell you that it's raining? And in their mind, they're like, no, this is actual rain. And you're kind of like, what is this? And so now when we look at what's going on in Alberta, what I think BC, like, again, I believe, to shorten this so I don't continue to go on, there's much more opportunity to be able to have some level of resolve. And what I mean by resolve is living in a country where you don't have to fear your government. That is the problem we have right now, is there's no checks, there's no balances, no opposition. We are vulnerable. And they want us that way so that we can, take years off of our life, living in a state of survival mode, anxious, that kind of thing. So as far as a starting point, yeah, like what other option do we have? If there's no integrity in the system, there's no official opposition, what choice do we have? And people say, 51st state, and it's like, well, Trump's not always going to be president. Do I like the idea of having a constitution, their constitution? Yeah. Do I like the idea of having elected local sheriffs that can say, no, you don't have to wear a mask?
Hell yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to protect the Constitution, and no, that is not happening. But right now you have centralized control, and it is a uniparty. I don't care what people say. Look at the voting records. Look at the silence. They're all in it together. And so what does that mean? We are not a part of that club, man. And so for me, when I look at, because I don't have kids, right? Like I don't have, but I empathize, right? I try to understand what other people might be feeling, what they might be experiencing. And if I had kids, I can't even imagine. Would I want to leave? Probably, because we're at that point where we're vulnerable and no one is standing up for us, man. So if you can decentralize, but then again, you're centralizing power into the province, I think it's at least more manageable. But you have to clean them out, though, right? It's like, okay, Alberta. You look at some of the groups that are. I used to do that for a living. We got a problem. Yeah, our mandate's been subverted. I go in and yeah, you got a bunch of narcissists, a bunch of agendas that have not been disclosed, and you might have a couple of federal agents as well.
Yeah.
So it's like, and they don't have the will to kick them out because everyone's like, oh, everyone's on the same page. Wait until you try and cross the finish line. Right? You got to have the conviction to be like, these are the principles. This is what we're working on. Don't complicate it. Don't dominate. Don't chase the spotlight. Because again, it's not about you. When you're going for separation, it's about the people. So nobody should be putting their face out as I'm the spokesperson for this. It's like, no, you're not. I don't care who you are. And if you are one of those people and you're hearing me, you're not. You're a messenger for the people that are trying to have some level of safe haven in this country where it's coming at us from left and the right and up and down. It's like, if you lose sight of that and it becomes about you, then these groups, they have to remove these people to remind them, make an example out of somebody. I had to do that so many times in my life, Eamon. It's like, I always had these things where I would make you sign a code of ethics, right? And it's like, okay, we're all on the same team. Nobody puts themselves ahead of the team. And then that would expose them. I could sit down with them for coffee and I'd slide the ethics document. You know what you did. I'm not making a big deal out of this, but you're out. I'll pay for your coffee. Toss $5 down on the table and I leave. I go back and tell them, okay, was I clear? Is there any other agendas here that you didn't disclose? I don't care if you've got another agenda. I need to know about it. We need to know about it. Because if we're trying to come together as a team, you can't let people run roughshod over you. So that's my concern with the provinces, is having people in there that have ego, have attitude, that they think that it's all about them. And I see some people coming through that light, and it makes me uneasy, because I want, like, would I move to Alberta? I don't know. Am I a glutton for punishment, man? Like, I love British Columbia. I think it's a beautiful place. I've lived here my whole life, but we're a special kind of government here, for lack of a better term. But at the same time, I know a lot of people have moved to Alberta with Daniel Smith. I got issues there too, but I'm not going to get into them. Again, I don't trust anybody 100%. But all the way around, I think that, the provincial way is the way to go, because we're not being heard by the federal government. We have no opposition. So what do? Did you let loyalty and patriotism condemn your family, condemn you, to a life of being chased by the government, or having to self-censor because you have wrong think? With this country, what I thought this country was for 43 years, turns out that's not the case, right? It's all for the greater good, but people need to realize the good is for them. It's not for you. So I'll leave it there. Long-winded answers today, buddy. I apologize.
No, it's fine, man. Makes my job easier. I guess the next one, this is going to be a bit of a tough one. The PPC, the People's Party, they lost 700,000 votes, and we've had a leadership review, and it's only half the ballots are in, but there's a 96% approval rating. I understand the approval rating is for Max to stay on, but it's also approval rating of the party. What do you think the future of the party is? Because my message from that is there's no need for reform. Like, do you think the party is going to survive until the next election?
That's concerning for me. If that's the numbers, if they end up if they end up being around that, I think that there's like and again, don't get me wrong, I got to qualify here. I think that the PPC has the tenets for a root structure to do great things. I think that, and I've said before on our when I was on last time, it's like, you have one of the only infrastructures right now that can reach you have one of the only infrastructures right now across the country that can speak to and reach out to the disenfranchised. The problem, though, and again, like when I look at those numbers, it's hard for me, really. Am I that black-pilled? Because I look at the elections and I'm kind of like, well, yeah, I can understand the huge drop-off because people are fearful, right? And it's how the Conservatives get a lot of votes, by saying a vote for the, PPC is a vote for the Liberals. And in this election, I think a lot of people probably did on that basis, because that was the special part of this election, was there was a lot on the table as far as what is the direction of our country going to look like. And so I could see some people that are hardcore PPC having to hold their nose as they go in there, and they pull that because they just want the trauma that's been inflicted by the Liberals to end, So I wouldn't necessarily take the numbers as a death knell, in a sense. Like, I think it's one of those things where, yeah, I would highly encourage some internal reflection. If I was to say, and again, this is just constructive criticism, right? I just want to be clear with that. But I think that there's a lot more that needs to be said as far as the vetting process for the party goes. I think that there is a lot more potential there for, like I talked last time about doing a lot more community organizing, grassroots, but you need that infrastructure, and it's got to be ready at any point in time. It can't be something that's just done. You guys can't catch up. It's so hard. You're going up against these machines, and when the writ drops, it's so hard for you guys to get to the point where it's just like, and then we saw a bunch of stuff about the 70 candidates or whatever. There was some shenanigans going on there. So when I look at the overall election result, I wouldn't take it as you got to fold the tent, that there's nothing to be done there. But I think that there is a lot of room for reform on a structural side, a game plan, like strategy, tactics, logistics. All of that should be on the table as far as what's going on. If the party wants to keep Max, then that's the party. That's the members' decision. I think that he brings a lot to the table, but we got to be real, right? There are certain demographics in this country that will not get on board with him. And so, like I was always saying before, and I'm not encouraging him to step down or anything like that. If that's what the party wants to do, that's what they want to do. But at the same time, when I was in situations, a couple times in my life, when I was in a leadership position, and the people on the other side of the table had personalized it with me, right? And so it would, because I was assertive, it became one of those situations for me where, as a leader, I'm like, well, okay, it's not about me. right? But me being in here is creating a circumstance where there's toxicity, there's anger and other things that if I wasn't, in that position, that things might be able to move in a better direction. So I removed myself a couple of times, and people are like, no, you got to stand the ground. So no, hey, you've been watching me. Just don't pound your fist on the table as much as I did in that one circumstance, right? But again, it's like speaking with conviction, having your ability to communicate your message. And if you can't speak to everyone, then you really got to self-reflect. Or if you're in a position of leadership and that is a cause for tension, then you got to also look in the mirror and say, hey, is it in the best interest of the group I'm leading to be that guy? And then as well, put your ego aside, put your pride aside. And in the end, it's in the best interest of the group. I did step aside. And I'm not saying that I want Max to do that. I'm just saying that there has to be a full landscape review in regards to how are you going to engage? Because you guys have been in the game. The PPC's now been 3 elections now, I think.
General elections, yes.
3 general elections. So to be at at that point, you got to analyze everything. So what is the strength of your riding associations? What's the game plan in between each election, right? And I'm operating from a perspective of, okay, let's say that there is still legitimacy in our elections. I'll go there. You still have that infrastructure, but you got to have a ground game that is mobilized to a degree that it is a non-stop thing, right? You can't just pop up every few months and expect what happens on X to translate to the ground. It's not going to translate. And so to have those community ties, to be able to have the time to vet people within a community that have a reputation that people will listen to and not dismiss right away. Oh, you're wearing a purple shirt. Like the trigger mechanisms that are built in because the media has just been hammering you guys, creating this narrative, far right, all this other stuff, right? So if you have the tenets in place, you got to get to that point where it's miracle grow, right? So what I would say is that there needs to be a pause and some serious reflection on how things are being done. Not necessarily the who. The who comes down to the vetting to make sure that you don't have people that are gaming the system, right? If you're going to run for a party, it's no different than what I was saying. You don't put yourself ahead of the team. Anybody who does that is not a part of the team. I've always felt that way. It's like, yeah, you may be good at scoring. You may get a hat trick every couple of games and you're the guy, but you never pass the puck. It's all about you. You want the spotlight, right? And so if you get people like that in the room, you got to be able to say, hey, check your ego at the door and look into the people so you make sure you don't have people running under your banner that make people question the whole thing, right? And so I think that, I'll finish on that. I think that there's still a lot of potential with grassroots movements. I think that you have to keep in perspective the landscape of this election. I know what the CPC are going to say. They're going to be, oh, you lost this much your percentage of your vote and all that kind of stuff. It's like, you keep doing that, right? But you're also ignoring the fact of how much shenanigans have been going on, the amount of fear and desperation in people when they went to the polls. And then you can also, let's blackpill. How much of it is actually real? I don't know, right? I still think if people say, oh, Max has lost this many elections in a row, and it's like, okay, really, did he lose the leadership election in the CPC, or do we want to talk about that? You're just going to pretend that everything is above board and there's not an inherent interest in the globalists to keep PPC out of parliament, to keep Max from having a seat? Right? That's the difference between what Trump did in the States. He did it through the Republican Party. It's different. You're starting from the outside, which gives complete narrative control to the CPC. So if they don't talk about it, like we said before, so you're trying to break through in a very difficult landscape where the media is not on your side or not even being objective. The opposition has the sense of entitlement that you better vote for us or you're voting for Trudeau. I mean, really, that always bothered me. It's just like, yeah, is there some merit to that? But at the same time, do you not understand what values and principles are? Because some of these people, I guarantee it, will never pull the lever for the CPC because they believe wholeheartedly, and a lot of PPC are like that. And it's what we need more of. We need people that understand principles and values and not going to compromise. None of this quid pro quo crap that we see that's permeated through our politics probably since its inception. So to have real people like yourself and others, and Michael Bader and others, crack through is you're up against it. But I wouldn't take the results of the election as face value. I think there's enough there to be able to say, okay, these are the mitigating circumstances. There's a lot going on here. So I would say keep your heads high, but you can't underestimate the machine that you're up against. And like I said, I was in the with Trudeau in 2019. I helped a buddy. The machine they have, when the writ drops, man, it is a beast. And it puts the conservative one to shame, but at least they've got a ground game that is, at any moment that writ drops, activation occurs. Your leaders step up. The volunteers know what they need to do. It is like I mentioned last time, it's like having like some kind of a boot camp so that you can start rolling people through to the very end of the boot camp. It just means people need to know they belong there. A lot of the times I saw with PPC candidates, they step up, they're just run-of-the-mill people, beautiful people, like, again, not all of them, but again, kind-hearted people. They don't like what's going on with their country. They step up, and then they've got to learn within a 6-week period that game, and let alone show up confident and be able to deliver on the debate stage and be able to perform, right? Because it's a performance art, and these parties have got 150 years of head start. So you're going to have ups and downs with it, but I would look at this as more of an anomaly. We are in a very different situation than other elections. And so, yeah, I would say, though, self-reflection must occur. The party needs to look at itself in the mirror as far as how they're going to do things. Right?
Let me pick up on that, on the self-reflection. First of all, the Conservative Party, they are absolutely not criticizing the PPC because they got what they wanted. They destroyed the party. There was no vote split, and they still lost. So they are completely humiliated. Now, as for like a self-reflection and course correction, I don't have a problem with Max. Like, people say the problem is Max. I don't really see that. Like, he's working hard. He's not. So I have no problem with it. My problem is with headquarters. I was hoping that with 700,000 votes lost, there would be. I'm just going to be honest. I was hoping that there would be a purge of headquarters. Everybody that, if this was a private corporation and you lost 7/8 of your customer base, everybody would get their pink slips.
Yeah,
but that didn't happen. And now we have a 96% approval rating. I don't think it will happen. And going into the next election, it's not going to be easier. It's going to be harder. Like these jackals, they've tasted blood. They know that they can manipulate the public. There's going to be another scare tactic. And you're throwing good candidates into a meat grinder if we don't have, as you mentioned, a boot camp. And the way what you need is retention of candidates. Yeah. And we don't have the support. The candidates get burnt out and they leave the party. And if you don't have that, everything they learned along the way can't be passed down to other candidates.
Exactly.
And like I don't know. I've tried everything I can to get headquarters to reform, but I've just been sidelined. So, Mr. Eriksen, what should we do?
Well, it's kind of the same thing with the CPC, right? It's the HQ, and I think that I don't know the entire workings of HQ, but I would keep maybe a systems person that understands how to access data. Who's the data guy that can get everything I need for a war room? And then I would fire the rest of them. Something's wrong, right? And it's like, well, that's pretty harsh. It's like, well, or you can take the time. Let's go through. Let's do these exit interviews from this last campaign. Why did it go wrong? And you will see the people that you will be able to identify. What is your job? Do you have too much? Okay, well, that should you be terminated if your job description is way too big? No. Okay, then realign things, right? Because there's probably good people, but at the same time, when you lose that many, a fresh start is important. Because if there's a groupthink going on there, if there is a closed off shop going on there, if you can't get access, then what are we doing here, guys? I've once in my life, I had to fire 11 people at once. Wow. And it was the same thing. Who's the data guy? Right? Who's the data? I just need the person to give me access, right? I was a transition guy, so I was brought in to do that. Kind of like, what is it? Efficiency person, right? It's like, who's the problem area? It's like, it's all of them. They're not working. The shareholders are not, their interests are not being kept at the forefront. And not one person was doing their job. And they were doing things on the side. So they love having the titles. They love having the accolades that I am this and I am that, without the responsibility of you need to deliver. And if you don't deliver, you're gone. And then if you put yourself ahead of the team, which a lot of them were, because it was like a grift in that's a unique circumstance, right? There's other times where you remove a couple people. And so I'm not saying, go in there and fire everybody, but you've made a point. is that if you fail and you make no change, then you're saying to me you don't know how to learn and you don't want to grow. You don't want to build something that people can get behind, right? And I know that's a pointed statement, but if you don't make change and you just like, okay, we'll just go through it again, your human resources component, right? For all the candidates out there that ran hard, to see that kind of a loss and see no course correction, that's a hard one, man. To see your party go, you're hopeful and all this kind of stuff, but then your team loses brutally and you don't change the coaching staff. And so I'm not saying, okay, it's not necessarily the coaching staff, because there are some good people. Actually, I will acknowledge that there are some good people on the ground for the PPC. Do I think Max should leave? No, I don't. I think he's got the ability. It's his baby. I think if he gives it up, it's going to be bastardized. Sorry for the language, but I believe that's what's going to happen. But behind the scenes, the people that are advising him, the people that are his close confidants, are making mistakes to the point where if you don't make the change just to show the people that you want to recruit down the line that you will take care of business if it comes down to it, you will own it. You will look at yourself in the mirror, make the changes, and start again. And who knows, Payman, if you did something like that, there can be a vibrant renaissance, for lack of a better term, when you clear out the groupthink or the people who are dominating the room, that aren't allowing that free flow of expression. Amazing things can happen. But if you don't do anything, you're going to get the same result. If not, it's going to be harder and harder to recruit people into the party with those kinds of results. Even if you look at it, all of the other stuff that may have contributed to that, they're just still going to see that loss in number and be like, why? So now is the time. If they're going to do it, I would say now. Call a meeting, do a performance review on everybody, and be thorough with it. If you're friends with somebody, you are not doing that interview with that person. All of the emotion, all of the ties need to be removed. You got to be objective. This is what you were supposed to do. This is the result. Thank you for coming out. Be respectful. Give them a reference letter or whatever. But you need some fresh blood. They need people like you in there to be able to say, hey, what are we doing here, guys? but be able to do that, right? To table it. So, but I'm speaking from, I don't know what the infrastructure is. I don't know how widespread it is. I don't know how far reaching it is as far as the provinces go, as far as I talked about this last time. What is the network? What is the structural setup as far as how much is Power 2 centralized? Is there a closed off component to it? You got to open the tent up and not take it personally. You got to look at it realistically and say, okay, how do we chart this path forward where people can believe in it? And if you do it right, yeah, you might hurt a few people's feelings, but at the end of the day, our country needs something akin to an opposition, and we don't have that right now. So long-winded responses, man. I'm sorry.
Yeah, let me just give two follow-up points. So I was leading Kris there. That was mostly my opinion that Kris kind of agreed with. That doesn't necessarily. I don't want people to get angry with him that he was, I put him in a tough position. The other thing, if headquarters, if it head office for the People's Party is listening, you need to reform. You have a little bit of time. I would recommend you do this before the throne speech of the king. And give your vision for the country. Tell them how, take accountability. Whatever, even if you have to throw somebody under the bus, just put out a message. Say, this is where we made a mistake. We're responsible. This is how we're going to course correct, and the people will respond to that. But if you just can think that you can continue on like this, like nothing's gone wrong, you will start to lose supporters. So please, open up, listen to the base. Start taking feedback from the base would be my message.
Absolutely. Fully agree. Your ability to recruit and retain, if that's affected, you got to give people something to believe in and show that if there's accountability. I hate even saying that, but times you got to make an example out of somebody. It's got to be with merit, right? Like, I'm not a fan of throwing people under the bus just for optics, right? But there are people in those rooms that need to take accountability for the end. And it doesn't all fall on Max, right? A lot of people don't realize, like, the HQ is the brain. Your leader, is important. Got to be able to communicate, got to have a presence, got to be informed, and Max checks off those boxes. But HQ, it's like,
it's just like with Pierre Poilievre. We were saying not everything is his fault. Headquarters of the Conservative Party messed up too.
Mm-hmm. Ginny Byrne. Like, I'll even call her out. Ginny Byrne should have been fired right away. What do you mean Canada is going to be mixed with Carleton and you don't do anything? I mean, that's like a simple thing. I would have been losing my mind payment if they're like, what are you talking about? An independent board is just going to add this huge chunk of liberals that ends up costing my leader his seat. Where were you, Jenny? Like, seriously. It's like, so there's got to be some adults in the room. That's why I think that there could be something to that. When you have a grassroots party with the PPC, right? I've seen founding member and this kind of stuff. There's a pride in being a part of something like that, right? There's also a camaraderie that develops in that. There's a family that develops in that. What comes out of that is comfort. You're missing the plot if it's more about the community, the family. It's like, no, you've got a job to do. And if you're not calling someone out because you're friends with them, then you've lost objectivity. If you are not doing your job because you know you're going to get away with it and no one's going to come after you for it because you're a part of this family, then you've got that. That's like a cancer, man. That is not good. People need, in organizations like that, in most any situation when you're leadership, people need to know that you're doing your job. People need to know that when somebody's done something wrong, that they're held accountable, because then they believe in it, right? They're like, okay, I don't have to worry about this. But when you start to see people messing around and they're never held accountable, I'm not saying that's what's happening. I'm just saying if anyone's listening and that's what is happening, it's too much of a love in, as opposed to hey, objectively speaking, we got to deliver here. We got to build a machine. We're young. We got to upgrade the engine. And people are like, I'm not a mechanic. Well, get some mechanics. You need some mechanics. The car is not running. You put a few spare tires on it. Eventually, what I'm saying?
The PPC mobile, it might break down at any time. We need a mechanic.
You need a mechanic, somebody that can come in there and kind of shake things up. At the same time, it's about attitude, right? Because anybody walking in there that's going to be doing that is dealing with a family, and they'll protect each other. And that's a problem. Like if that's the case, not that it's a problem to protect each other, but if it's not an environment where you can make change because everyone's too close and you're not looking at the merit behind what needs to be done, right? It's merit based in every situation. It's not personal, right? Some people would take it personally when you make those kind of changes. Again, it's like, oh, that was my friend. You did that. It's like, yeah. I can't tell you why they were removed, but we have policies, we have procedures. They weren't followed. So are you on board or do you want to join them? Because we have to be serious and adults in this situation. And, I think that, like I said to you before, it kind of attaches to it. It's like the PPC has that network, it has that ability to organize, to reach the disenfranchised, to do the barbecues that are not standardized. You got to conform to a way of thinking or a way of speaking. But when you have a headquarters that has probably been around since day one, I don't know how many. I've seen actually some former ones out there that kind of like to throw shade at the party. But that's not what this is about. And I'm hopeful for those that are listening, this is not about throwing shade. This is about just being real in regards to how do you get a functioning grassroots movement off the ground with the root structures where the miracle growth starts to happen, where you have that opportunity to be able to have an impact locally, right? Because like I said to you before, I think on the last podcast, it's like, if you have that network and it's running nonstop, then you can also say, okay, who from my riding in the Okanagan wants to put their hat in the ring for mayor, city council, right? It's training ground. Do it, right? You got the support, right. And you got the machine there. You want to learn, you want to practice, get good at debates. Then you view federal as the major leagues. You got AAA. You know what I mean? You have to start looking at it as a machine that way. And if you don't have a system that is rolling people through, not forcing them, right? But I guarantee you go through the PPC roster, you're going to find gamers all across the board from all different ages, all different, the two genders, sorry, all different genders, however many. But you're going to find that enthusiasm there, and the people that are willing to see the long game. And with any long game, you're going to take losses, and I think that's the biggest part. Every time it's like I've done something and it hasn't gone the way I wanted, it was not like a loss or a failure to me. It was like, what did I learn? And right now, that's where the PPC has to be. It's not about, in a sense, pointing fingers. That you can get to that as far as what the needs of the party are, what the expectations of the leader is, or the mandate of the members as far as how that's done. But if you don't have the people that are delivering, and I would say that you've got people there now.
I don't know if you're a history buff. Do you know the Battle of Caney? It's the one where Hannibal just completely owned the Roman legions. Remember, he unleashed the elephants and he crushed every Roman citizen of fighting age got destroyed. But then the Romans, they regrouped, they learned from their mistakes, and they defeated Hannibal in the Battle of Zuma. Right. So this was a defeat for the PPC. There's no shame in that. Yeah. You just got to figure out what you did wrong and learn from it.
That's it. And that's like it's the ability to rewrite the playbook. If the playbook's not working, you got to go back to the drawing board. You don't throw the whole thing out, right? There are some good things to keep in there. But if you want to, so that's like 6 years, 2019, 2021, and then now the 3 elections, right? So it's like 6 years. Again, like it's like the party's a baby when it comes to things, right? And so you're going to have those growing pains. And I think that the way the landscape of this election really did add to that. So when I looked at the numbers and I saw them, I'm like, okay, but it wasn't like, for me, it was like, well, I hope you guys don't like hang your heads and think that this is it, the party's over. And of course the CPC is going to say that, but so it's kind of nice that in a sense, like, oh, your leader didn't even win a seat. Let's have that discussion. Didn't you say that for like years? Your opinion doesn't matter because you don't have a seat. But to take away from that, I think that there's still a ton of potential there. The branding, some of your graphics got like the branding component of your online game is fantastic. But
you know who did that branding?
Hmm.
An individual by the name of Nikki Pilon.
Okay, yeah. So definitely a tip of the hat to that. Like, there's a lot of things that are going well, but at the same time, I think that if you don't have that point of reflection, it really comes down to that, and making hard decisions with people that are probably good people, but they're not the right person for the job. And that's not to say you got to kick them out or whatever, but you got to reposition the knights at the round table as far as where people are sitting, in regards to their ability to deliver, not how you feel about them personally. And again, it's a tough spot to be in, but at the same time, I don't think that it's as big of a loss as some people may be experiencing it right now. I think there's a lot of positives that can come out of it, especially if it doesn't invoke a change. Then again, it's what you do with it. But if you just sit on it and try and do the same thing over and over again, it's not going to work. It won't work. You'll have a very hard time recruiting. You'll have a very hard time retaining. It's not the time to buckle down and say we'll get him next time. It's okay, that's part of it, but there is a reworking of the engine that needs to occur to give Max a better chance at things, to give the people on the ground that are willing to put their hats in the ring more of a support system, right? Something to believe in. So it's like that line between where do you get to camaraderie, but everyone in the room has got to be like, okay, but we've all got a job to do here, right? And you have to be safe in saying that, hey, if someone's not shoring it up, then take some of their workload away. That might be part of it. But if it's not, if it's just that at the time you had these people, these are the ones that came in, they're part of the family, but they are not top tier as far as being able to deliver, you got to make those tough choices, man. And it's never easy, but in the end, like you said, as a CEO of a business, who are the shareholders in the PPC, right? It's the members. It's the people you need to believe in what's going on. And so it's going to be hard to get people fired up again. Some of them, not all of them, right? There's some diehards I know that are going to just keep going, and to me that's great. It's passion. You see the long game. But for those that aren't, they're going to see some kind of change. And I don't think it starts with Max. I think that's way too risky. I don't think it's the right time. That's just my opinion. But you can make changes that can easily be communicated and felt by the members in a quick way. So,
Clown World, perhaps Kris should be hired to reorganize. I could get behind that.
Do I need Kevlar? Probably not. Actually, not in this situation. No. If I was to reorganize CPC HQ, yeah, Kevlar and a ballistic helmet.
You're a naive British Columbian going over to Ontario. They'll eat you alive.
Potentially. Some of them know me there. They know my reputation as far as cleaning house, but at the same time, yeah, I think that it's better to be done in-house as far as that goes. I want to maintain some level of like positive discord between between you guys and what you're doing. But I think that it is like I wouldn't lose hope, complete hope. I think there's a lot that needs to be done. So you just got to give it time and see. After this, all the votes come in, and Max will have an opportunity. I think I don't even know, is Max the guy that can make those decisions to make changes, or is it done by committee? Like, I'm not sure who's in charge there as far as that goes. I think Max has obviously got to say, but self-reflection over a barbecue.
Yeah, I believe it's a board of directors, 3 or 4 people. I believe they all have signing authority.
Okay, good to know. See, again, like I'm not fully aware of how the circumstances are, things are set up there, but
The people trash the People's Party a lot. They say there's no constitution. The way that the People's Party is governed is actually remarkably similar to the other parties,
Yeah.
where it's governed by a board. So it's not that radically different. It's just the other parties they've codified it, whereas in the People's Party it's through convention.
Right. Yeah, and I think with any new movement, I think that you have to have a certain level of safeguards there. But when you're doing what you guys are doing, when you're a clear threat to the established narrative, you're up against it. And so I think that it's like, for me, when I look at things, I think that the potential is there, right? It's just like, but how do you turn that brush fire into a flame? And you need to be able to have that role. And you saw a little bit during the convoy, right? I think that was great because you had Max out there, you had a bunch of people out there that were saying what should have been said by every Canadian. Right? Yeah, rights matter. But now you're in a situation where you guys, it's like, I can't remember how many years were the Green Party at it before they even got a seat.
It's almost depressing. I don't want to talk about it.
Right? But you also have to look at it, right? It's like that ability to get up in the morning and still ride is so important. That's like the ones in the party that you can tell that no, this is a long game. It is a very long game with this kind of environment, especially when you know that the media is going to bash you, and that how excited I would have been to see you stand up in Parliament and question period. Like, they won't allow that. They won't allow anybody from the PPC in there because start spitting some hot fire. I would like, again, if I was ever in Parliament, you're out of order. You're all out of order. And I'm escorted. And are you going to let me back in? Or am I going to get a $200 fine for saying something? I'm not even talking swearing. I'm just saying, you guys are making this much money. You're in bed with them. You're in bed with this person. It's like the Canadian people don't know. I'm here. I'm friendly. But this shit's got to stop because you're treating us all like fools. And that's what they don't want. They don't want people in there that can shake it up. And that's the problem. That's the biggest problem with the Uniparty, is that narrative control. You can't get the ideas to the forefront for Canadians to even think about them because they won't let you on the stage. Max wasn't allowed to debate. But the fact that they won't let him debate just again shows you that they're fearful.
Man, I remember I was in the debates and I was talking to the Green Party candidate, well, her campaign manager. And the campaign manager was like, "This is horrible. Can you believe that they disqualified the leader of our party from the debates? What's happening to my democracy?" And I'm just looking at her. I'm like, should I tell her? Like, is she not aware that this happened to my party's leader first? And I was like, I'm not even going to waste my breath. I didn't even bother telling her.
Didn't the Green Party leader get in trouble for standing up and saying Max should have been in the debates? Or did he just...
The co-party leader, the guy, right?
Yeah.
And I think that might have had something to do with the fact that he decided to leave. I think they sat him down. They're like, "Listen, you can't spit the truth like that. The rules. This is how it works." They put a picture of his daughter in front of him. And they're like, "Better be careful next time."
That's right. Do you like your stipend? Do you like being invited to the
a man's got to take care of his family. He wouldn't want something to happen to them.
Definitely not. It's like, you like the steak, don't you? You really like that steak. It's juicy, right? But that's the thing, is that we've gone so far off the rails when it comes to the kinds of people that run, the people that are put in charge. Like, even now, look at Carney's cabinet. Are you serious? Like, are those people that should be holding portfolios? Absolutely not. They're yes people, right? And so we got to feel that pain to be able to get on the other side. But I still think that there's enough of us out there. We haven't had a convoy. We haven't been able to really see how many people, and I'm sure you remember, like I've said before, it's like that feeling of, oh, we're a fringe minority, we're isolated, I can't go to, I'm kicked out of society because I don't want the government to experiment on me. And then the convoy happened. It's like, okay, it's been like 3 years since then. So you can imagine, yes, the mandates were a big part of it, but it wasn't the only issue. People came from all over the country to stand there and say, hey, we love our country. We love the idea of freedom. Let's all get along, right? You saw that, again, religion didn't matter. Skin color did not matter. It was Canadians, bouncy castles, barbecue, hockey,
I always say, like, we're in a constitutional crisis.
Hmm.
and you decide when that crisis started. Maybe it was with prorogue, maybe it was the green slush fund scandal, maybe it was COVID, the truckers, maybe it was, I don't know, 1974 when we started building up the deficit, the blowing up the budget.
Could have been
I
the
don't know.
'90s with Mulrooney too. Like there's a lot
Yes,
of potential
yes,
flashpoints there. It could have been with the first Trudeau too. But it's been a slow decay to get us to the point now where they think it's okay to not have Parliament running, to allocate $73 billion to, you know what I mean? Like, okay, guys, like, are we really, you're not even trying anymore? Which again, like, it's like that. Now I sometimes I see stuff on the news now and I can't help but laugh, but I have to, like I said before, I got to, is that a crazy laugh, or is that that's hilarious because we're so far off the rails? And it's never a crazy laugh. It's always like, this is what they're doing. And now I look at it as, okay, good, because be that brazen. I need that neighbor 3 doors down to be watching that and have something occur in his mind or her mind, or something, a chest that doesn't seem right. For everybody it's different. We talk about being awake and how many people are asleep. It's like, for me to say, oh, I'm awake, you're awake. It's like, well, I think if we sat down, it's like, what level are we at? Right? There's going to be some things where I'm kind of like way more black pilled, and there's going to be other things that, you might say that will pull me back from the black pill. Right? But to be able to keep that open discourse going, and to be able to kind of explore it in a healthy way, I think is so important, because we don't have that
yeah.
opportunity anymore. Right? It's all
It's
just
like
freaking circus.
It's like, how far along are you on the awake axis? It's like, are you at the point where you realize that all of our problems come from the international bankers? If not, you're not there yet.
Exactly. You got the 10 you can do it. A
That's the
book, the
final
10
boss
stages.
level. Yeah.
Is, yeah, exactly. Or how far in are you on that, right? And that's why I say it's like, for some people that hasn't even happened yet. That first initial point where I'm like, something seems off. And that happened when I was in my late 20s, where I felt like something was off with regards to the games that were being played, but on a very micro level. It wasn't until I got on X during COVID that I was like, what? And again, if anybody in here that dropped something in one of my comments, I thank you for that. I may not have looked at it right away, but there was a consistency of, hey, did you know about this? Did you know about this group? This group? And I'm like, no, I didn't. Okay, let's have a coffee. Oh, crap. But it happens, as far as, okay, is there merit to this? Is this or not? Because that's the problem that I think a lot of people have, is that you go all in on with everything. And I don't think we can do that. I think that we should be able to pull back, look at something and say, okay, at least now you have an idea. If something shifts in the landscape, you're aware of that, so it gives more merit to it, and you can adjust, adapt, whatever backup plans you have. But as far as like the acceptance that everything you see online or everything that's happening is true, that's going to cause a problem over time, right? And so you have to be able to, at this point in time, just kind of starting to learn to live again, to be able to manage the systematic pounding of the propaganda they're throwing at us,
Yeah.
but to be able to separate yourself from that, and so that you're still able to be attentive to your relationships, to your friends, to your family, to your responsibilities in your life, but not taking your eye off it and swinging hard whenever you get the chance, right? Without provoking certain groups to a degree. I don't even know if that's possible anymore, because I seem to piss off everybody with, well, not everybody, but I call out everybody, and I have accepted that, as far as, I'm not going to change. I'm not going to appease. I'm not going to change to appease you. I'm not going to self-censor to appease you. I can't, because it's like the times are it's way too important now for people to do that, to go silent, to take themselves out of the game. A lot of people are probably throwing their hands up in the air saying, I'm done, I'm not doing this anymore. No, you got to keep riding, but you got to keep your head. So take the time you need.
The only way that I can deal, I'm around a lot of liberals just because of my family. And the only way I can deal with them is the Socratic method. Like, I just ask them questions. I don't even tell them. I didn't even tell them I was running for office. I'm like, oh, really? Like, your daughter can't get into university because there's too many foreign students? How do you feel about that? Yeah. Tell me more about it.
Yeah, how does that make you feel? So you become, it's like you envision the couch kind of thing. Because again, otherwise, if you and I'm not around a lot of liberals anymore. Like I said, I've talked to a few, but again, it's like, you can't take the approach of trying to change the way they think, and oftentimes doing that by asking them questions, you could be, oh, I never thought of that, right? So it's way more passive aggressive in being able to try and evoke thought in people, but at the same time, it's like, I never know when I'm talking to one. It's just like, okay, where are you at on this, and this? And we can have 20 minutes of a great conversation, and then I see that look in their eyes, and I'm like, oh, okay. I'm going to call it a day. You
Uh,
put your mask back on, and again, it's I feel bad for people in many ways in regards to that, because a lot of the people used to be my friends, but they were activated during COVID and became something that I no longer recognized. I still feel bad for them in many ways. I won't take my eyes off them. I'm glad I understand that look in people's eyes when they are in that kind of a state of fear, but I can't waste my time trying to wake people like that up. I just, for me, it's hard enough now to try and get CPC members to kind of look at things objectively. But my main focus moving forward is really the ones that see they understand. They don't know. None of us really know what's coming. We can kind of see it. But I think there's a lot of people out there that just need to be able to lighten their load and process, because no one's coming in that sense, right? That's what bothers me the most. It's like, you don't acknowledge the trauma you inflicted on the people. So obviously there's going to be no resources. I think to myself, what it'll be like, because I used to be a crisis line volunteer. So what would it be like for me to call a crisis line and some woke person
oh God, yeah.
that cannot empathize with me? So you're even more isolated, right? So I look at the battlefield and I'm like, okay, we've been in this for 5 years. Who's been left behind? And we have to be able to shore up that side of it. That's again with the PPC, massive opportunity. Not necessarily just in the political realm, but there's a lot of people out there that are very confused, scared, disenfranchised, and don't have anyone or anywhere to call, to for that horrible term, a safe place, right? And so for me, I'm trying to keep it light, but I was dark. What was it? Did I talk about my Clint Eastwood moments when I was on with you last? As far as I felt like I was on my front porch with a shotgun saying, "Get off my lawn." I just went back over my posts from November until like early March. I'm like, that's not me, right? So here I am again, coming out and starting to do a little bit more to let people know. It's like, yeah, no, I felt it, I saw it. It's like that final twist for me as far as the uniparty component of, okay, that's a hard realization, but there's so much liberty there. There's like a sovereignty. It's like, all right, you guys are all corrupt, and I'm not going to stop saying that you're all corrupt, because you're all corrupt. But I'm also not going to live in under this cloud, like a dark cloud's following me around. It's like I go outside, and if you focus enough time on making sure that you're taking care of yourself, and do you have your own tests, right? Are the colors vivid? Am I smelling? Am I noticing beautiful things? So that you're not always caught up in this cycle of doom scrolling and missing life, right? I view it to a degree. These buggers have stolen 5 years of my life, but I found myself in those 5 years. So is it really a steal if I can find myself and understand truly what matters to me, what makes me happy, what drives me, where my passion comes from? All this stuff I wouldn't have been looking at. I would have been, as an advocate, I would have been continuing to live through other people to find my happiness. When people ask me, what makes you happy? I don't know. Now I know, because I was forced to look at that, and I'm running with it, regardless of what dark outcomes might be ahead of us. If you sit there and wait for it, you're not living. And so for me, I just made the decision. I'm not going to do it. Try and help as many, hurt as few while I'm here, but never give up, because that's what they want, man. They just want us to sit here and cry about it and feel like we have no power, that we have no value. And the best way, I would put the middle finger up, but I think you know where I'm coming from. As far as what that natural reflex of response should be, is you don't own me, and I'm not letting you live inside my head either. And I'm going to speak truth to power. If it makes you uncomfortable, I'm not going to apologize for that either. I'm not here to hurt anybody, but I'm not going to allow you to dictate how I live my life or my thought patterns. And I think that the more we can get wrapped around that, we have to start healing, man. And it's a continual thing, as opposed to spinning and spinning and spinning for 5 years and never really looking at that. So again, I apologize for the ramble.
No, it's all good. Kris, in wrapping up the show, where can the audience go to follow you?
Right now, I am just on X at K Eriksen V2. It's on the bottom there. Yeah, and I'm going to be, like I said, I'm going to be doing more wellness spaces and other things soon. I'm kind of shifting as we get into the. I just have to do things differently. I've been describing a train wreck for 5 years, and I'm tired of describing it. So yes, I will continue to put my provocative posts out, but I want to mix it up and try
Kris,
and get.
You also mentioned that you're thinking of launching your own podcast.
Yeah. Yeah,
If you
it's
want to
been
speak
something
to
I've
that.
been thinking about. Pardon me?
Yeah, speak to that. Tell us where you're going to launch it, when, what's this going to be called.
Well, it's kind of like I'm in the I needed to go on podcasts and just to kind of get a feel for it and have more of a regular presence so that okay, what does this do to me? You know, how because I'm an introvert again too, so you have to get over those humps. But now I'm looking at talked to a couple people in regards to getting a few hints and tips, like especially with not looking like I'm broadcasting from a jail cell, is one. But I'm probably looking at we're at May 21st. Probably by the end of June, I'll have things laid out as far as I would like to have my first podcast by the end of June, but I want to try and line up a few interviews ahead of time. And I'm not even sure exactly what the approach is going to be. On one side, I want to do wellness, but I'm thinking of interviewing people that have written books, people that need that extra platform. Because it's not about me, right? Like I just think it's like, okay, well, I don't view myself as an influencer, but I can help people grow, and that's kind of where it fills my heart, in that sense. So I got to kind of own it and just be like, do I want to do X spaces? Not really. I will do them, but there's a lot missing from X spaces that I think that doing a podcast can bring a bit more life into any kind of live like what you do, right? It's like I think it's time to pivot, and I think that as far as the name goes or what kind of a guest lineup, I'm in the initial processes with it, but I did put it out there, which is that first step of got to follow through. So it's out there, and now I just have to put the things together. It'll take me about a month to get the equipment. I got my new microphone, so I'm good to go. I need to get a little
Cool.
shield. I'm taking those steps, but it's time. I think adding my voice to it and being able to provide a platform for others to come on and get their voice out there. I think there's a lot of fulfillment that will come from that. And just got to do it. It's time to up our game. That's where I'm at. So if I up my game, who knows? Other people might as well, but can't oversaturate because I know that I can babble and can be a bit much at times. So
No, not
try
at
and
all.
try and keep it controlled as best I can.
Well, Kris, I wish you the best of luck. Looking forward to the podcast when it comes out. And thank you very much for volunteering your time and coming on.
Thank you. And I will have to have you on as well, too, if you'll be so kind to grace me with your presence.
It'd be my pleasure.
Right. Thanks again, man. Anytime.
Take care, Kris, and goodbye to the audience.